The Vietnam Provincial Governance and Public Administration Performance Index, or PAPI, is the largest time series national governance and public administration performance monitoring poll in Vietnam, inclusively based on citizens' experience. PAPI measures 6 dimensions: participation in local levels, transparency, vertical accountability, control of corruption, public administrative procedures, and public service delivery. It is noted that Vietnamese people have appreciated the provincial public governance, which is expressed by the slightly increasing satisfaction from 2011 to 2013. What about PAPI 2014? Are Vietnamese people more satisfied with the provincial public governance in 2014 than that in the previous ones? Stay tuned with Sharing Vietnam Today.
Greetings from Sharing Vietnam on VTC10 NetViet. The PAPI project was first piloted in Vietnam in 2009, and until now it has been 6 years of implementation. And in today's program, we have invited one expert from the UNDP to share with us more about how provinces here in Vietnam are performing over time. Thank you very much, Mr. Haido Acuna, for joining our program today.
Thank you for the invitation.
The 2013 PAPI findings show that citizens seem to have more positive assessments on the local government's efforts in controlling corruption and improving transparency. Is it also the trend noted in the 2014 PAPI findings?
I would say that it's very similar. I think that one has to be cautious what the data is exactly telling us. What we saw in 2013 was a lot of recognition to the discussions that were in Vietnam about corruption issues. What we think is that that information was captured in the PAPI exercise because it was in the subconscious of citizens. Do you think that your provincial authorities? But also it's interesting, I will say, that what we are finding now in 2015, for example, that the trend has some sort of stabilized, right? Because you will think, well, there was a lot of discussion in 2013. Perhaps the level of discussion was maintained in 2014. And then the question is, okay, are we going to see more improvements in terms of how citizens perceive that the fight against corruption is progressing? Or is citizens, really getting a little bit frustrated, not so positive about developments and see some regress in the perception of corruption or transparency? We note that it is not changing, so to speak, and by itself, it's a finding. And we need to understand now, okay, why is it that it's not changing, right? It's good that it's not changing because, it is basically setting, that it will require time.
How about the trend in citizens' participation in grassroots political life over time, and especially in 2014?
This is one of the most interesting dimensions, I will say, that we have of the 6 aspects that we measure in the PAPI survey. And this is the dimension where we see that there is a slight regression, a deterioration. Citizens year after year tend to rank a bit lower their participation at the local level. Right? It could be an effect of the national level elections, that they're only once every 5 years. Right? So when we did the survey the first time, the memory of the elections were very fresh in the mind of the respondents. But that's not the whole story, right? Because we are also asking about voluntary contributions. We are also asking about how do they participate in their very, very local development projects at the village level, at the community level. And we see some regression in that regards, right? It could be a function of the type of expectations that Vietnamese citizens have now are different.
For the 2014 PAPI survey, nearly 14,000 randomly selected citizens nationwide were interviewed. The result shows that over the past years, there have only been insignificant improvements in the 6 governance dimensions. In 2014, there is a wide variation in PAPI scores within provinces, implying significant differences in provincial governance quality. For example, Vĩnh Long, Long An and Bình Dương province seems to provide high-quality governance and public services to nearly all of their citizens, while Cao Bằng, Ninh Thuận, Điện Biên and Quảng Ngãi provide low governance quality and public services. Especially, Quảng Bình province gained the highest score in 5 out of 6 dimensions. That shows how citizens in Quảng Bình province are happy with the local governance.
Tôi thì cũng khách hàng đến trung tâm một cửa đây thì cũng là thấy thái độ của chị em là cán bộ công nhân viên thì rất vui vẻ, chỉ dành cho khách hàng là đàng hoàng trong cái công việc giao dịch rất nhiệt tình, chu đáo. Tôi thì rất thấy hài lòng, nói chung là về trung tâm một cửa nên là yên tâm và hài lòng.
Đấy là niềm tự hào và đồng thời nó thể hiện được cái vai trò của chính phủ Quảng Bình đối với người dân. Về mặt là toàn diện tổng thể thì chỗ này chỗ khác thì vẫn còn có nhiều khuyết điểm. Do vậy trong thời gian tới thì chúng tôi tiếp tục chỉ đạo có những giải pháp cụ thể quyết liệt để đảm bảo chính quyền Quảng Bình từ tỉnh đến cơ sở thực sự là một chính quyền của dân, do dân và vì dân.
In 2014, there have been a lot of improvements from the government in reforming public administrative procedures, especially the introduction of Decree number 19 on tasks and measures to improve the business environment, national competitiveness, which has forced positive changes in public administrative procedures in different ministries and sectors. Hundreds of procedures have been eliminated. Time for tax paying and custom activities have been reduced. However, this report also points out some major concern.
So it is a composite picture of the trends that we are seeing, but it is evident from the findings that while the scores on service delivery has improved across all provinces, the people's participation remains a concern, and participation scores are declining over the past 4 years, and this is something that all provinces need to look at, need to examine to see what actions they should take.
The PAPI tool monitors the provincial performance in governance and public administration over time. So overall, what is the national trend over time in PAPI, and have the provinces that gained high scores in the past years been able to maintain their high ranks?
We had a reconfirmation of this trend, right? That normally it's the provinces that have scored high that tend to have higher scores. It could be a function of their proactiveness or the leadership in that particular province. It could be a function of the natural endowments or the socioeconomic endowments of the province. From the 4 years that we have of data, there is only one province that has been able to remain in the highest performing group, which is Viet Nam province. So Viet Nam province is the only one that in the 4 years in a row, when it comes to participation, has a score in the top 25%. Right? Always, they are doing something differently than the rest of the other 62 provinces that have not been able to catch up. The other dimension that we have, which is very different, which is dimension number 6, that is about public service delivery. It's about education. It's about health. It's about infrastructure aspects. We have a bit more of stability. We have a group of provinces, Hải Phòng, Quang Binh, Hue, Da Nang, Binh Dinh, Bà Rịa Vũng Tàu, Ho Chi Minh City, Vĩnh Long, and Kiên Giang, that across the years they have been at the top performing groups.
Could you please give some examples about the improvements made in 2014?
I think that another issue that we are learning is that if compare one year with another one brings only very little changes. But what is more important is, the long-term vision. Even, 4 or 5 years in which we have done this exercise is still a short period of time. But now, we can see some trends. So, again, on participation, right, issues. Son La province is the province that has the largest reduction in the score, right? On the other side, we have a few provinces, Camao and Binh Tuan and Tai Binh have significantly improved their performance. What PAPI does is to provide that information. The second stage will be to try to understand what are Camao, Binh Tuan, and Tai Binh doing that can be then exported to other provinces, right? What makes them, from the citizens' point of view, report that they have better experiences on participation aspects. But these are only 3 provinces. The others in participation, they have moved from one area to the other one. One dimension that we see a lot of improvement, at least statistically, is the transparency. We see more and more citizens reporting that there is more transparency over time, right? So when it comes to transparency, right, we have provinces like Cha Vinh, like Hao Giang, like Quang Ngai, Lam Dong, Vinh Long, with very significant improvements in their transparency scores.
In those high-performing provinces, are there any issues that still needs to be improved in the future so that the local government can gain better trust and satisfaction from the local citizens?
There's always room for improvement. It doesn't matter, whether you are doing well. I think that what we are learning from this exercise is that first, that there are room for improvements, but also what we are learning from this exercise and from the information that it provides is that policies and the implementation of policies in Vietnam take time, right? So we need to understand what are the expectations? How much can participation change in Vietnam? How much more transparency can be provided? How much more information can local governments to provide? How much more accountability can be put in place? From all this data that we have, the answer is there's always room for improvement.
The project was piloted in 2009 and until now it has been 6 years of implementation. How do you see the impact of the PAPI on local governments in Vietnam?
Every year there is much more attention. Every year we have more demands or more requests for information from the local authorities. When we started the exercise, it was pioneer. Not many provinces knew about PAPI. So what we now have collected is information from at least 16 provinces that have formally responded to the PAPI data. They have looked at their indicators, they have looked at their scores, and either the People's Committee or the People's Council have issued a formal decision, regulation, or action plan to improve performance. So we see a lot of interest, a lot of demand.
It's very great to hear that the PAPI tools has a lot of impact on local governments and also on different organizations here in Vietnam. And once again, thank you very much, Mr. Haido Acuna, for joining our program today.
Thank you very much.
With that, we have to wrap up our program for today. For comment and feedback, don't hesitate to write to us at trendvietnam@netvietTV.net. Thank you very much for watching and goodbye for now.